glad to see you again here at Hell in the Hallway with your host, Billy. Today's show, we had a question. I posed a question on Facebook trying to get some interaction to see what people thought. And the question reads, how do you handle people who hurt you? And I was posed this question because of a circumstance that one of my clients was struggling with, not knowing how to engage the person, right? And a lot of times I find it really depends on where you are as a person. So let me kind of give you some of the responses I got. And I want to be able to tell you, kind of give you some insight, some background as to where that can go and how that can be helpful or even sometimes harmful, depending, right? So let's see what we got. So the first one, well, not really the first one, several people said they would create distance between themselves and the other person. And you know what? I find that healthy. I do understand how it's really important to create distance between yourself and a person who is harming you. We need to be able to do that sometimes, right? We need to be able to step back, collect ourselves, reflect on ourselves. The distance is not always for the other person and that you don't want to deal with them. A lot of times the distance is for you. You need the distance. I've had to do it. I'm doing it. Sometimes you have to create distance between yourself and another person in order to get yourself in a better position. And what I mean by that, I mean more a mental position. So you can either re-engage the friendship if it's something you're looking to do or relationship, or you can step out entirely and find out where you are in that place, right? In terms of forgiveness, grace, and mercy, if you're willing to even do that, right? So distance is what I heard a lot of people say. The other one, which I thought was really good, is that one person said, actually a few people mentioned this, that I would tell them they hurt me after the anger subsides, and then I realized the anger is really hurt. I really appreciate that statement because anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is almost like the color pink, right? By itself, it doesn't exist. You have to combine red and white, and then you get pink, right? So anger is really our way of controlling pain. We're in pain when we're angry, right? So if you are able to step to that person and actually distance yourself a little from the emotion of anger, maybe you can communicate with that person and let them know what they did to actually hurt you, right? But then we have to manage our expectations, and that's a whole other thing. I got plenty of distance and disassociates. That's really strong. I mean, I do understand that. But then I got some individuals, I'm kind of looking over those responses now. I got some individuals who said, hey, I'm going to tell them what's going on. I'm not going to give up. I'm reading one response now. And that has God reminded me that I have hurt others and I need to forgive them. Completely understand that. But one thing you have to recognize is that forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation, right? We can forgive people, but we don't have to reconcile the relationship. Forgiveness is really not for the other person. Forgiveness is largely about yourself, because how can you move forward when you have somebody in bondage and they're actually traveling with you everywhere you go? I have spoken to a number of people in relationships and recognized that they are still tethered to people that they have not forgiven. And that means their movement forward is slower. Now, again, forgiveness does not say what you did was right. Forgiveness does not say, hey, we're going to be together again. Forgiveness says, I can let this go. I can release you from my heart. I can release you from my mind, and I can move forward. That's what it means. Okay? So we got people who said they will forgive. We have individuals who said distance. I like what one person stated, and it was, she stated that if it's a safe space, I tell them we can work through it. If not, when I'm ready, I will decide based on how they handle things and if they deserve to be in my intimacy. Woo! Deserve to be in my intimacy. Oh, I almost fell out my chair when I read that. I love it. I plan on stealing that, ma'am. But the idea that we don't think about who we give our intimacy, right, to. And here's the thing. Giving intimacy does not mean sexual intimacy, right? That's a really immature, very young, childish way of looking at intimacy. Intimacy is giving you connection and closeness to my person, to me, right? I have to decide if someone is deserving of my intimacy. I love that. And we have to do that. And we have to recognize if the space is safe in order to talk to a person. Maybe it's not a safe space. Maybe it's not good timing. Those are things we have to pay attention to. So I so appreciate that response. Make sure people deserve to be in your intimacy. Love it. Others had stated it kind of depends maybe on the strength of the relationship or the type of the relationship, how they would handle a person who hurt them. I thought that was fair, right? So maybe somebody who cut in front of you at the store would be treated very differently than if your friend offended you, or if you had a family member or someone you're in a relationship with. So maybe that does make a difference. And in a way, I suppose it should, right? Because we are saying which individuals are deserving to be in our intimacy. And those who are, the more intimate and more close we are with a person, the more we are giving them permission to hurt us. Ooh, sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it's true. When we get close to people, when we give them our intimacy, when we give them our hearts and they give us their hearts, we are giving people permission to hurt us. And that's not a bad thing. That's all what vulnerability and love is all about, right? So yeah, I can imagine that it really depends on the how close or connected that relationship is. Let's see, what else do we have? Let's do a couple more. I have one lady says, express myself and no longer make myself available to them. Whoa, okay. And here's the thing. I fully understand that. Because like I said before, forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. And you can let people know what they have done to hurt you, and you can move forward and say, we're done. You have the right to decide who has the privilege to be in your space. Absolutely, you do. You do. So that was a good one. One good word I like when someone said boundaries. Set boundaries and forgive. That is so important. That's what all of this is about, right? How do you set appropriate boundaries with people, right? Who do we decide who's in our space and who is in our intimacy and who we're going to connect with? You know, and you have to decide what setting boundaries actually look like, right? What does that mean? They can't text you, they can't talk to you, they can't come see you, or like myself, do you recognize where their limitations lie and you treat them accordingly to those limitations? Absolutely. That is something I try to exercise. Treat people according to their limitations so I know when to stop. Because see, I may have very different limitations that go beyond them, and then I'm hurt. And you know what I'm doing in that moment? I am expecting myself from others. And once I recognize and you give me a pattern of your limitations, oh, I need to act accordingly. And see, and it's my fault. Once I see them and I decide to do something different and I decide to pour and to give and you give nothing back, oh, you done told me who you were. Why am I surprised that you're doing it? So set boundaries, recognize their limitations, and make a decision or own the decision. Okay. We also had a couple of individuals talk about the severity of the offense. And yeah, that matters, right? If it's no big deal, like somebody took your socks without telling you, I mean, probably odd, but not a big deal, right? But if we're talking about somebody who has betrayed your heart, oh, that's a whole nother animal of another color. So yes, the severity of the offense really does matter. So we need to make sure we pay attention to that and make a decision based on what we're going to do based on the offense. But here's one thing that's interesting. Severity is relative, right? What's severe to me may not be severe to you. What's severe to the person you hurt or who hurt you may not be severe to them, or vice versa. So that's where communication in friendship and relationship is so important. People have to know. I have hurt people and I didn't even know I hurt them. I had no idea, right? But they're walking around with a different narrative in their mind created about what they believe or the motive of what I've done. When in fact it would be much more, it would be much better if they would communicate with me so I can understand where their pain resides and what I've done to cause that, so I can see it through their lenses of their heart. See, I can't see it if I don't know it, right? So make sure you inform people and have some sort of communication. I want to thank you for taking part in today's Hell in the Hallway survey. We got a lot more responses than that. A lot of those I plan on utilizing and creating its own podcast around because it's deserving. Thanks again for such a wonderful, wonderful input. And I look forward to seeing you next time.